Good morning, everybody. Good to see you out this morning. Beautiful day. Good crowd this morning. Appreciate your interest in spiritual things. This lesson has been on my schedule for 2 months now, and it's gotten pushed back and pushed back. And this was like one of the last Sundays that I could do this, and it still be relevant to the season that we're dealing with. So I wanted to make sure to squeeze it in now. But let me try to visualize something with it. I want you to visualize that rather than a warm fall day, it is a cool fall evening. And in your hands is a very expensive cup of hot chocolate in a paper cup, so warm that it's nearly burning your hands as you hold it. And the smell of popcorn is in the air. Maybe you even have a bag of popcorn. And you're sitting on a hard bench in a very well-lit stadium with the booming sound of the band playing. And as you look out on the sideline of the field where the boys are getting ready for the game, you see these boys that maybe you know some of them. Normally they're pretty mild-mannered, laid-back kids, but they're not tonight. They're looking around almost anxiously, nervously. They can't contain themselves. They can't stand still. They're bouncing up and down as they're just standing there on the sideline. You can see the excitement. It's nights like tonight that they've been preparing for, well, really all year, all season. They've been looking forward to this. They've spent the past months enduring some intense training, preparing their bodies to be quicker and stronger and more responsive than ever before. They've done some hard things in preparing. Late summer, they were out in the 90-degree heat with 80% humidity, pushing themselves, trying to build endurance. Before that, the preseason, they were in the weight room trying to get out one more rep to add a little strength, to add a little size. They've even been watching what they eat to make sure that they're bulking up like they need to or trimming down as they need to have more speed, whatever the case may be. They have spent hours and hours and run hundreds of snaps to make sure that they are working together as a team, that they are able to execute their part, that they're able to work in unison to be able to run the plays that they need to run. And now, as kickoff time approaches, here they are. And all of that effort and all of that work has been focused down to this. And as the coach talks to them before they go out to take the field, these boys who normally have attention deficit disorder are zeroed in. They are focused. And when the coach says his last words, they immediately turn to one another and try to encourage each other and mentally prepare each other for the first play of the game. That's what's taking place on the field. But up in the stands, you have an equally impressive thing taking place because you've got the fans and they're feeding off of this excitement as well. And even the small talk on the bleachers has been things about, well, you know, the team that they're playing this week, last week, how the game went, maybe injured players, what are the chances for the playoffs. Most of the conversation has something to do with this team and playing this sport. And everybody on at least this side of the stadium is pretty much of the same mind, dressed in the same colors with one goal, and that is we're going to beat them. We're going to be victorious. And when kickoff comes and the ball is lofted end over end to the other end of the field, there's this loud sound of cheers, and so much so that the bleachers nearly tremble with it. And nearly everybody's on their feet. And that same roar of the fans and that same intensity will be heard time and time again over the next several hours whenever a key play, important play, a good play for our team happens. And when things don't go well, you can hear the collective gasp of the star player that's slow to get up. Is he hurt? Is he going to be okay? Can he walk it off? Bad call. You feel, everybody feels the pain together of we got cheated on that, or maybe, no, that was our fault. We made a bad blunder there. And the fans are analyzing each play. Well, boy, we were wide open over there. If we just could have shut that down. Or yes, we did shut that down. And when a critical play comes up, when it's fourth down, they need to go for it. all the fans stand up, and there just is real focus. I mean, you're talking hundreds of people united in this focus over what's about to happen in the next few seconds. And there's this yelling in unison for encouragement for the players on the field. And the players on the field are putting forth their maximum effort. Each player is trying to make sure that he's doing the job that he's supposed to do. If it's blocking this gap here, or if it's covering this person, or setting this screen, whatever it is, what's my goal? What am I supposed to do? How am I going to do my part so that everybody else can do their part? And they're fighting off fatigue. Their bodies are tired. Their bodies want to sit down. They want to rest. And yet, here they are lining up again, gasping for air. And even the players that have been hurt, they don't want to come out of the game. They're begging the coach, I can do it. It's okay. I can't walk on it real well, but I can play. Let me play. Because they want to be out there. They want to be part of what's going on. So you've got the team, the players, you've got the fans, and they're working together, feeding off each other of one goal, of one mind, unity, camaraderie, community, win or lose, the same feeling of belonging and purpose and unity in what they're doing is there. If a win, well, there's mutual celebration and congratulations by all. If a lose, there's mutual disappointment and consolation by all. Now, whether you're a fan of football or not, that's pretty impressive that humans do that. And they do that with incredible amount of zeal and energy and enthusiasm. And they do that whether you're talking about American football or whether you're talking about European football or whether you're talking nearly any culture in society has that element of competitive sports and the camaraderie and the unity and the effort and the passion that goes along with it. Now, I've heard a number of social scientists, sociologists, talk about the fact that this explains, they're explaining man's fascination with competitive sports, and they describe it as kind of a civilized outlet for, or a substitute for man's instincts for warfare and survival. In other words, what we're doing is we're kind of play acting in a civilized way, warfare. Maybe as, you watch a cub lion and how it's going to wrestle with its litter mates there, or how it's going to pounce on a butterfly or something like that. It's practicing up its skills. So this competitive sports and the passion that we feel for that, dedication and the camaraderie that we feel with that really is just almost a rehearsal of when there would be major conflict, how we could pull together and as maybe as a country, we could unite to fight our enemies or whatever it may be. But I think there's even a better explanation as to why we become so passionate about competitive sports. Let me suggest to you that man's struggle for survival has always been much greater than defeating some wild animal or defending our village from the enemy tribes. From the beginning of man's existence, we have been thrown into a much greater battle. Paul would say in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this age, against the spiritual host of wickedness in the heavenly places." There is a battle, a cosmic battle of good and evil in which man has become part of. And there is a struggle for our identity, who we are and who we belong to. There is a conflict over our souls. And it requires a lot of the very same things that we see in competitive sports. It requires a passion and a zeal to be part of this struggle and battle. It requires preparation. It requires maximum effort on our part. It requires unity and support and teamwork. And all of that is part of the real life that we are living. And so when we see that type of passion and that type of excitement for some type of competitive sport, we look at that and we say, well, what causes us to feel that way? Why do we have this urge to to be united in a common foe and to do our part and to put forth such effort in that? And I would say the reason is because on a bigger scale, deep down, we know we are in a life or death struggle in real life that's bigger than this life, that has to do with eternity. It's not uncommon in the scripture to see where there are passages that compare an athletic event to our spiritual battle. And I want to look at just a few of those and make a few observations from it, just to think about. Turn over to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. It's not American football that Paul deals with, but in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24 through 27, he deals with something that certainly in the first century was one of the competitive events that people got excited about, and that was a foot race. And he also mentions boxing match in this as well. But look at verse 24. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Yeah, that's kind of what makes it interesting, isn't it? Can you imagine having an athletic event where nobody's really winning? We're all just going to run. And we're not seeing who goes the fastest, who crosses the finish line first, who has the best time, none of that. We're just all going to run. No, that's not how things work. In a race, one receives the prize. And that's the reason why there's this competitive spirit. That's the reason why there's this effort put into it. That's the reason why there's such diligence and training put into it. Now, understanding that, Paul says, you run in such a way that you may obtain the prize. Now, he's not talking about a foot race anymore. He's using the foot race to say, you understand the principle. You understand the principle of how much effort, how much excitement, how much dedication and zeal is put into athletic competition. You are in a competitive event as well. And you need to be putting forth that same diligence and effort and sacrifice and dedication and determination. Everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. You look at people who don't seem to have a lot of initiative and gumption in life, and yet they get involved in competitive sports, and all of a sudden here they are getting up early and training themselves and watching what they eat and making sure they get enough sleep, and everything revolves around that. They do it to receive a prize, but it's a perishable crown. But we for an imperishable crown. Therefore, thus I run, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and I bring it into subjection, lest when I preach to others, I myself should become disqualified. Let me note some things from this passage. Number one, there is a victory to be won. There is a prize to be won. And it's not a perishable crown. It's not a trophy. It's not a plastic trophy. It's not a plaque that says state champs or whatever. It's an eternal reward, an imperishable crown. The discipline that is required, the temperance that is required should be greater than that of athletic events where it just is a temporal trophy or crown. But notice something else. In thinking about that, there's something we realize and we console each other with it. All right, important game. Everybody's excited about it. Leading up to this game, as the weekend gets closer, you would think this is the most important event in the the course of human history. It's like, man, we've got to win this game. This is it. And I think the players feel that way. Many of the fans feel that way. But then if the game starts going where third quarter, you're behind by 21 points and you just haven't shown any spark the whole game, you know what people start doing? Well, next week we'll do better. Or next year when we fire this coach, we'll do better. Everybody kind of realizes something when it comes down to it, and that is, well, it is just a game. Life will go on. I've seen Alabama fans that I thought, man, if they lose the national championship this year, I don't think they're going to recover from it. And they did. They recovered from it. They were down for a week or so, but they recovered from it. They recognized it's just a game. Life goes on. So what do you tell? It's okay, man. We'll get them next time. And you have that. But let me tell you, the race that we are running, the competitive event that we are involved in spiritually, at the end of that, if we are not victorious, there won't be any patting each other on the back saying, well, it'll be okay. It's not going to be okay. The things that we look at and get excited about on earth that have temporal consequences, I think are rehearsals in many ways for the real struggle that we're in. But we must never let those type of things train us to think, well, you know what? If on the day of judgment I get there and God says, well, you didn't obey the gospel. You didn't listen to my son. You weren't obedient to him. You're not going to go, well, and somebody pat you on the back and say, it's okay. You can do better next time. That's it. And so what Paul is saying here is that's the reason why I don't run with uncertainty. I don't fight as one who beats the air. I discipline my body and bring it to subjection, lest when I preach to others, I myself should become disqualified. The stakes are too high. So yes, we need to have all of the temperance, all of the discipline, all of the zeal, all of the excitement that we see people have for temporal victory or loss. But even more so, because we realize this is not temporary. This is eternal. This is eternal. 2 Timothy chapter 2, if you'd like to turn over there. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5 is another place where Paul makes a reference to athletics. He says in verse 5, and also if anyone competes in athletics, he is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. In other words, what we understand in athletics, you have a football game, you don't just turn a bunch of boys out there and say, I don't know, you decide how many players you want on the field. You decide when you want to go. You don't have to wait on the snap of the ball. You decide how you want to tackle or what goal, where you want the goal line to be. We know that would not work. And no player goes out there with that mindset. One of the things that coaches are always harping on their players. Look, you got to play smart. You can't jump off sides. You got to be disciplined that. You got to know what the rule. When you tackle somebody, you don't let your hand get up there around his face mask and hook onto that. Do not do that. That will not go well for us. And if the player goes out there and does that, and he says to the ref, I didn't know I couldn't grab him by the face mask. The ref is not going to say, oh, I'm sorry. Let me pick that flag up. I didn't realize you didn't know that. That's not how it works. So what do athletes do? They study to know the rules. They study to know what's the boundaries here. What's the objective of the game? What am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? I want to make sure that I have that knowledge. And then what do they do? I have to have the discipline then to practice that. I have to have discipline when I've got some boy that weighs, 270 pounds across from me on the line snorting smoke. And I'm sitting there and I know I cannot flinch or move until that ball is snapped. I have to have the discipline to follow the rule. I know what the rule is. Now I have to have the discipline to do that. In our struggle on this earth, we need to know the rules. Why is Bible study so important? Why does the scriptures talk constantly about knowing God's word, being aware of God's word? Because this is the standard by we're going to be judged. We've got to know that. We've got to recognize that. And then we've got to live by that. Jesus, when he was tempted, Satan is coming to him, and the temptations are placed before him. By the way, the temptation is pretty much the same from Adam and Eve on. Adam and Eve needed to know the rules. This tree you can't eat. In the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. Satan comes and places the temptation, making the rules a challenge. The rules seem to be a hindrance here. So what's the temptation? The temptation is, well, it looks good. Looks like it would taste good. It would make me wise. Why can't I take that? You have to have the discipline to follow the rules. If you don't compete according to the rules, you won't be successful. Adam and Eve were not successful. You and I have not been very successful. Jesus was successful. Why was Jesus successful? Because when Satan came with the temptation, Jesus said, "It is written." He knew the rules. And then he had the discipline to live by the rules. 40 days without food. Here's stones. If you're the Son of God, make them bread. You can eat and satisfy your hunger. It is written. I know what the rules are, and I'm not breaking the rules. He was successful. He is the role model. If anyone competes in athletics, he's not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. And the same is true for our struggle. You have to know the rules. And then you have to live by the rules. You have to practice that. Ephesians 5, verse 15 through 17 says this: "See then that you walk circumspectly," in other words, with an awareness of what is going on, not as fools, but as wise, "redeeming the time because the days are evil." You are in a struggle. You are in a conflict. "Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is." There's a strong temptation for us to try to play however we want. And that won't work. That won't gain us the victory that we're looking for. So we must resist that, know what is written, what God has said, and then do accordingly. Turn over to Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. This is one of my favorite sports illustrations that is given in the Scripture. It's a beautiful picture. You've got chapter 11 where the Hebrew writer goes through and he talks about all of these heroes of the faith. By faith, they did these incredible, amazing things, and they overcame temptation, and they resisted Satan, and God worked through them in many powerful and mighty ways. So you've got all of this list going through there and talking about all these different ones. And then we get to chapter 12, and here's what it says in chapter 12, verse 1. "Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses." Can you picture this? This is kind of like the stadium. And all of the people in the stands, all of the fans, in this case, happen to be Abraham and Moses and David and all of those heroes of the faith who have been successful in competing in life, have successfully overcome, and they're filling. So imagine that same picture that we started off with. Here's this well-lit stadium, and all of the fans are the saints of God who have been faithful to the Lord. And now the focus is on us because we're the current players. We're the ones out on the field. We're not finished with our race yet. We're out on the field. But the picture is we're all on the same team. We're all on the same. Moses and David and all of those, they're on our team. They're cheering us on. By their example, they motivate us and encourage us. "Since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God." You see the picture here. There should be great motivation as we compete in this life, as we struggle not with flesh and blood, but with against principalities and powers in the heavenly places. There's great motivation because we can look back and we can say, people have been successful in the past by God's help. Through their trust in God and their confidence in God and their faith in God, they have been successful. We can be successful too. And they're cheering us on. And there's that same unity and camaraderie that we often feel at some sporting event. And yet here it is by those that have lived in the past, and among those who are presently living. And all of us are working together to be faithful to the Lord, to resist Satan, and to be victorious through the blood of Christ. So what are we supposed to be doing with this encouragement? Lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. We want to make sure that we are giving our very best effort and nothing is hindering us. No football player goes out, no wide receiver lines up with ankle weights on during a game. He may use ankle weights in training, but in the game, he doesn't want anything hindering him. He wants to be as swift as he can be. Make no provision for the flesh to fulfill its lust. If you are trying to be the very best you can be in serving the Lord, anything that you know of as, well, this is a hindrance to me. Jesus would say, look, you just get rid of that no matter what. If it's your eye that's causing you to sin, pluck it out. If it's your hand, cut it off. You don't want anything to hinder you. We are in a life and death struggle here, and you want to perform at your very best. Therefore, lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and run with endurance the race that is set before us. Here's something that I do think is a little different from most of the athletic events that I see. The intensity that you see at most sporting events is for a few hours. And maybe longer than that. There's a build up to it. You know, if you're a diehard college football fan, you may start watching the pregame show and watch it all the way through the postgame show and all of that. But generally speaking, there's a block of time which is really intense. And then there may be part of the week where you don't think much about it, or maybe you do. I don't know. But we are running an endurance race. It's not a sprint. And I do think a lot of Christians sometimes have this mentality, okay, I'm going to hit it really hard. Sunday, I'm going to be really serious about spiritual things on Sunday. But then Monday, it's back to however I was living before. That won't work. Nor will it work to have short bursts of weeks or months. We are competing in something where we want to be successful all the way to the end. And therefore, it takes endurance to do that. So not only do I have to overcome the temptation today, if tomorrow comes, I'll have to overcome the temptation tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. And we will have to continue to work together as a group, not just today, but we've got to get along and love each other tomorrow and next week and the next week and the next week. And continue to do that. So there's an endurance aspect of this. We're in this for the long term. But here's another element of that. How long do we have to do this for? We don't know, do we? It may be today. Today may be the last day, that we have to strive. Maybe the Lord returns tonight. Or maybe it's however many years until we die of a natural death. Whatever it may be, we have to be faithful. So we lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. We run with endurance the race that is set before us, and we have an example that we hold to. We call ourselves Christians, followers of Christ, because we see the way that he came to earth. We see the way he dealt with this spiritual battle, the spiritual competition that's going on. We see the way he lived his life, and we say, that's how we're going to live our life. So we know the rules, and we handle the temptations the same way that he did. It is written. And we live by those rules, and we follow those rules. And we try to love as he loved. We try to honor the Father as he honored the Father. We try to pray like he prays. We try to model our life after him. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, the originator of it and the one who will complete it, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Not only do we see an example of how to compete in this struggle that we're facing, but we see an example of the victory that is available. Glory with the Creator. Glory with the Father. And we long for that and we look for that. Now, let me bring this together here to think about. First of all, in this passage, I do love the communal nature of the struggle. They're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. It's our turn to compete, but we're still a team. And as we do this, the teamwork element, I think, is beautiful. But I also want us to think about the level of excitement and zeal that we have in these type of things. Look at the intensity and the zeal that we often see for athletic events. It's amazing. I see full-grown men that are mild-mannered, that rarely get very excited about anything, and they'll yell to the top of their lungs in their living room, at their television, or in public at a stadium. Act completely different in the sense of how excited they become. That's amazing to me. I don't know of many events that are like that. I don't know hardly anything else that brings out such passion in people. You may be a sports fan or you may not be. So you may be able to easily relate to this and say, oh yeah, I totally get that. Or maybe you're like, yeah, that's just never been my thing. But you see it. Let me ask you this. Do you have that same type of zeal, investment in spiritual things? You realize one is temporal, one is eternal. I do think many of the same elements are necessary in each. I think that zeal and that intensity is needed in athletic events. I think it's very much needed in spiritual life. The communal aspect of teamwork and encouragement, of we're in this together and I want to help you do your part, and I'm sure going to do my very best to do my part because I know if I do my part, it helps everybody. That's needed in team sports. Very much needed in our spiritual struggle. Do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together. Why? Because you are to stir up love and good works. Athletic events, they sing fight songs. Wouldn't see a grown man sing to any other grown men ever, any other place, but in the stadium, they'll belt it out. Speak to one another. Teach and admonish one another. Psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. Singing, making melody in your heart to the Lord. There are elements that we see at the zeal and the intensity in one that are certainly applicable to the other. But what I really want us to emphasize is, do you see how much greater the other is? Do you have that type of focus, that type of purpose, that type of zeal for what's really lasting? I want you to imagine that every person here, every Christian in this building right now, was as zealous for the spiritual struggle that we're in as the most zealous sports fans you know of. Can you imagine what impact we would have in the Lord's kingdom? First of all, you would never come together as a group here and ever leave saying, well, I didn't get much out of that. That wasn't very encouraging. That wasn't very inspiring. You would never have that experience. And there wouldn't be anybody in Franklin County that didn't know. I'll tell you what, those folks at Quinn, whew, man, they take that serious. They think that's real. They think there really is a heaven and a hell. They really think there's a God. They really believe that Jesus is the Son of God. They believe the things that are written in that Bible are true and that they better live by them. And they're out trying to get other people to join their cause in that. And man, the love they have for each other, the support they have for each other, the encouragement they have for each other. I will say this. I'm probably biased, but I feel very good about the congregation at Queen. I'm very thankful because I do think we have a lot of those elements. But I think myself included, that we don't often have the zeal that some have for sports, for the things that I believe are much more important and that you believe that are much more important. So my purpose in today's lesson is, first of all, to look at those passages, look at what the Spirit says to us through those passages, and then also for us just to reflect and say, all right, what do I need to do to have that type of priority where I'm in this for the long haul. I'm running with endurance, but I'm also running with the zeal and the intensity and the enthusiasm of of this event because I see how vital it is. I see how important it is. And I want to do everything I can to encourage others to have that as well. That's helpful to me, I think. When I can see that type of intensity in others and I think, well, that's the same thing we need to have in spiritual things. That's helpful for me to kind of put myself in check and saying, all right, well, if that's not true of me, what's the problem here? Why do I not really believe that? Or am I discouraged by others because they're not excited about it? Or what is the problem there that I don't have that same type of intensity in zeal? So let me end by saying this. Do you realize that we are competing in an event? We are running a race. And it has eternal consequences. There will be victory or there will be defeat. And there won't be a redo of we'll try again next season. This is it. Are we giving our best? Are we pushing ourselves? Are we encouraging others? Are we looking to the Lord for our example? As you go through this week and you see the devotion and the excitement at sporting events, ask yourself, are you passionate and devoted in the greatest conflict, struggle, battle that the human race has ever faced? Do you have that same type of drive and intensity? Can we help each other? We mentioned, what are we here for? One of the things we're here for is to stir up love and good works, to build that zeal and intensity in doing what's right and being passionate for the cause of our God and our King, Jesus Christ. If there's some way we can help you spiritually, let that be known. It may not have to be during this invitation, although this is a perfectly appropriate time because you have everybody together here. But anytime that we need that type of support and encouragement and help from, we should be able to go to one another and say, hey, I'm not sure that I'm zealous like I need to be. I'm not sure my focus is where it needs to be. I think I've maybe lost sight of what the real goal is here. Help me with that. If there's some way we can help you being obedient to the Lord, correcting your life, increasing your zeal, helping you through some temptation or struggle, we stand ready to do so. If you'd like for us to do that right now, please come while we stand and while we sing. Thanks for watching. If you found this video to be beneficial, please follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with others that you feel like may benefit from it. If you need to contact us, please contact us via email at quinn.church@yahoo.com. Also, if you're in the area, we would love for you to come visit with us at one of our assemblies. Have a good day.